Now, where do you start? What an embarrassment of riches there is for this week's Scam of the Week. Today, the first day of summer and the last sitting day of Parliament for 2023. They call them sitting days, but it's usually a standing and shouting day on the last day of Parliament as everybody gets everything out of their systems. And what a great series of stoushes we've had this week. There's been the Bruce Lehrmann defamation trial going on. We've got the Murray-Darling Basin stoush in the Senate particularly. The ATO's sneaky robo-debt scheme. Chris Bowen's climate briefing. And the dreaded boat people invading Australia again. An incursion on our northern shores of what looked like fishermen, but is, according to Peter Dutton and the opposition, people coming to take us down from overseas. Boat people, of course, PwC getting its whopping 50k fine, a macking $50,000 fine for selling government secrets. Where does one begin? Well, we begin on climate. We know how emissions are meant to be falling if we intend to meet our climate targets, to meet that magical 43% goal. If we're meant to save the planet, stop stuff getting all extinct and the oceans from rising. Well, you wouldn't know it from Chris Bowen's ministerial climate update this week, but yes, emissions have actually been rising over the past year, not falling as intended. How do they expect to get to that 43% in the next few years while still approving new coal and gas projects? By continuing to subsidise fossil fuel companies to the tune of $11 billion a year? Well, wait for it, buried in the small print. Good old CCS, carbon capture and storage. A technology proven worldwide not to be commercially viable. It doesn't work, but that's how we're going to get there. And with some fancy number work, counting land use and those kind of things. But this scam of the week is seriously hard fought. There was the brawl over the Murray-Darling Basin plan, where Labor's actually trying to do something good to protect the environment. So naturally, it was vigorously opposed by the coalition, David Littleproud, particularly foaming at the mouth, gnashing of the teeth about this terrible plan that would help the environment to the detriment of cotton farmers and nut farmers and so on. Penny Wong pointed out that under the coalition, only 2 gigalitres of the 450 gigalitres promised to be saved in water for the environment was actually saved. 2 over 450. 2 over 450. That smacks of a coalition ratio of overall effectiveness in government. 2 over 450. What a beautiful metric that is. How loudly it speaks to government. The 9 years of the coalition. 2 over 450 gigalitres of water saved. With their brilliant management of the Murray-Darling Basin. So what's the scam with Snowy Hydro too? They threw another $6 billion at this whitest of white elephants this week for a project which Rex Patrick points out on the website will probably cost taxpayers $30 billion all up for a project still on the grid. Transmission lines still to pockmark the countryside. Another $6 billion just nonchalantly tossed at the Snowy Hydro. Now, we unveiled our top 40 tax dodgers this week also. It's an annual scam fest, the biggest scam in the world, which is multinational tax avoidance, where billions are siphoned out to tax havens each year. More on that to come. We're going to do a really good job on the top 40 tax dodgers to show you how it's actually done, how they get away with this. But you can check it out at the West Report, our initial coverage. But you can check it out on Michael West Media, our initial coverage. Suffice it to say that the world's biggest scam is going gangbusters, with ExxonMobil taking out the gong yet again for another year. Exxon now, the biggest oil company in the US operating in Australia, has made $100 billion almost in total income over 9 years without parting with 1 cent in income tax. We're going to just have to tell you. We'll go through their accounts and we'll tell you how they do it. What a scam that is. 100 billion and not 1 cent in tax. Try being an ordinary Australian person, making $100 without paying a cent in tax. But get this, it emerged that the ATO, the tax office, has started up this robo-debt style program to ping ordinary Australian taxpayers for debts incurred years ago. There will be no arguing with that. If you're an ordinary Australian, you don't argue with the tax office, with your highly paid lawyers from the big 5 law firms and your advisors from the big 4 accounting firms. You don't argue unless you're a big corporation, in which case you and your lawyers and your big 4 advisors have polite discussions which drag on for years over the finer points of law. But how about the Bruce Lehrmann defamation trial? What was the AFP doing with its investigation? Why have Channel 10's lawyers managed to do so much better investigatory work? What's with the alleged rape of a Liberal staffer by a Liberal staffer at a Liberal senator's office becoming a political issue for Labor? And what's with the 7 Network claiming they didn't pay Bruce Lehrmann for his interview, if you can call it that, Kerry Stokes' Channel 7? After the SMH wrote, Lisa Wilkinson floated through the doors in a powder pink suit. No mention of Bruce's clothing. But it turns out they didn't pay for the interview, but they did cover Bruce's accommodation costs. Of course, they had to get him to Sydney somehow. They covered Bruce's accommodation costs for an entire year in a 3-bedroom apartment on Sydney's leafy North Shore. What a scam. Is it any wonder credibility in the mainstream media is going through the floor? Has gone through the floor. It's burrowing towards the Earth's core now. It's that low. And no wonder. How can an interview where you pay somebody's rent for a year, tens of thousands of dollars, how can that possibly be deemed to be independent? But the award goes to the climate scam. It's a very big scam. A government trying to appease both its fossil fuel donor clients and the people of Australia at the same time by concealing rising emissions and claiming that it will reach its targets via technology which does not work. The carbon capture and storage scam. They believe anything, these guys. Do they believe it? Well, we don't really know. They spend a lot of time with fossil fuel people, swish, smooth-talking lobbyists in their ears, mates, friends, former politicians. Is it any wonder the system looks as though it's broken? Thank you for supporting us here at the West Report. Please comment, like, or share below and throw us a few dollars on Patreon if you can afford it.